In this episode, we're joined by Angie Byrd, host of the Midlife Magic and Mayhem podcast, a mentor for midlife women who believes that aging is not a crisis, it's a threshold.
We deep dive into the area of intimacy and relationships, and we know you are going to find so many nuggets of wisdom and information in this episode.
Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. How are you all? Well, this isn't going to be going out real time, so it's always a little bit difficult for us to do these introductions. But, you know, we'll wing it. Let's see where we're at. What have we been up to, Mr.
Well,
D?
we're just talking about the very exciting thing we did last night, which is going to get our warrants to be members of the Guild of Free Men of the City of London.
People, I did post, well, you posted about that, and I posted about it in some of my mentorship groups, and people think it's that I'm now no longer able to be arrested or something
if
like
only
that.
that was true.
I was thinking it had nothing to do with us being arrested. It doesn't mean to say I'm exempt or either of us are exempt from being arrested.
Unfortunately not, Claire, no. But we are very excited because one thing we get to do, and we've already kept bothering, they call them the masters of the guild, was take part in the sheep drive across London Bridge later in the year. So one of the historical benefits of being a free man was you could transport your livestock across the bridges of the Thames without paying a toll. And so to celebrate this, every year they do this sheep drive. You can drive actual live sheep across London Bridge.
Yes.
I think that's happening in September. So I'm angling to get us included in it.
We're also able to pee in the street, apparently without being arrested.
You do that anyway.
But I'm not going to try that and draw our sword. Again, I wouldn't like to try either of those and just presume that I can't get arrested for those. But we did wonder if we were the only, well, not the only, but it's quite rare for a husband and wife team to get their warrants at the same time.
I believe it is. Well, we're certainly the only couple there last night. I don't know how many couples are members.
No.
There's only about 2,000 free men, I was reading.
Yeah. It was good.
Small organisation.
It was really, really fun. And again, I'm just going to mention the weather because I'm British and I'm completely obsessed with it. We keep seeing some sun, keep seeing some clouds. I am hoping, please, dear God, that we actually start seeing some spring.
I feel it's in the air. We did get to go down to Primrose Hill and work out in the park this morning as well.
Yeah, and I did see that the trees have come into bloom a little bit more, which is good. But without further ado, that is, oh no, we need to just say about the quiz.
We do. So we always say on these podcasts, we've been working on something special and surprising. And it takes us a long time till we actually finish doing it, but we have finished it. We have an amazing new quiz. It's our midlife health and happiness quiz. So you can basically, we'll put the link in the show notes. You can go online and actually take a quiz that will tell you kind of where you are on the midlife health and happiness spectrum. You'll get a video report at the end, and then you'll get a PDF report with actual action steps you can take, the areas that you might want to improve on. So we're really excited about that. We've been working on it for what feels like forever.
A bit too long, to be honest. We were
filming some of it in Ibiza, which was a long time ago.
Ibiza when? What?
But it is ready.
It is ready. So it's really exciting. So you get your little video, your little PDF downloadable with lots of strategies, and it will show you where you are doing great guns and some places that you need to improve and strategies to walk away with. So yeah, it's live. Anyway, we are really excited to have our guest on the show today. Angie, hello.
Hello, James and Claire.
So Angie is the host of the Midlife Magic and Mayhem podcast. Fabulous, wonderful podcast that we have just been on as well. And Angie is a mentor for midlife women. I mean, she's a coach. She works with them across a broad spectrum of areas. But again, like us, very, very holistic approach. She believes that aging is not a crisis, it's a threshold to be celebrated and to expand into our wisdom that comes with age. And today we're just going to have a chat about lots of different things. I think we might be focusing quite heavily on intimacy and relationships. which is something obviously is very, very important for us midlifers because, you know, we go through challenging times personally and that can affect our relationships. So we're going to dive into all of that and I'm sure touch on lots of different things. So Angie, welcome.
Thank you so much. It is an honor and pleasure to be here with you.
Yay!
I've got to say, for listeners can't see, but Angie is looking fantastic.
Yes.
We've been put to shame, right? Because you know we never have video with these. We're still in our gym kit, but Angie's turned up looking fabulous.
I'm not even going to tell you what time it is. Angie's over in the US and we're in the UK. So yeah, it's late in the afternoon and we have
been put to shame, Claire.
In our gym kit, looking all sweaty and disgusting. And Angie looks all very glamorous because she's going to be doing a photo shoot just after this for one of your retreats that you're running. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
This is true. Yes, it's bright and early here in the States where I am right now in Boulder, Colorado. And in fact, yes, I will be having some photos taken after we wrap up here for a retreat that we are holding for couples here in Boulder, Colorado in the States in September. I believe it's the third weekend of September. We are still finalizing details and putting the website together and all of those fun items to build a retreat, as you know. But we're very, very excited. It's going to be small, intimate, maybe 6 couples for probably 3 to 4 days. And it's going to be quite magical.
I think it's an amazing idea and so needed. And can you tell us a little bit about your background? Actually, let's start there. So a little bit about your background and then perhaps talking a little bit about Midlife Magic and Mayhem podcast as well. So yeah, floor is yours. Tell us a little bit how you got into what you do now.
Well, it depends on how far we actually want to go back.
Way back.
Right. I mean, let's see. I'll kind of hit some highlight points. Like
Perfect.
Literally when I was 8 years old, I started asking big questions. I would look at myself in the mirror and look at the pupils of my eyes and try to find where I was in my, like, very big kind of esoteric questions for a child. And so this idea of who are we? What are we up to? What are we doing? Why are we here? Those big questions have always been kind of running in the background of my life. And fast forward, I've been with the same man for 30 years. We've been married for 28 years. We have 2 grown children in their 20s. And I started coaching professionally about 10, 11 years ago. And because I just felt so much, it had helped me so much in my own life, kind of point to some of these big questions that I had always been asking of myself. And then in full transparency and you know, personal life story here, I was an only child when I was growing up. My mother suffered from depression and committed suicide. She took her own life in 2006. She was 58, I was 37. So she was in midlife. And so that really catapulted me forward into deep, deep discovery of the human mind. What are we doing? How do we get ourselves in these positions? What are we up to? And so I did a tremendous amount of personal work. I dove deep into meditation. I had my own coaching, had therapy. You know, my husband was super supportive at that time. And I just received so much value from all of the things that I was learning, both from a health and nutrition aspect. Being physically active was so healing for me, keeping my body moving, feeding myself well, with meditation, with yoga, with exercise, with, you know, reading materials and books and following people and being with teachers that really fed me at a very deep, deep level. And it became so much. It's like a glass when it becomes full and it just started to overflow. Yeah. So I just couldn't help but want to share all of the things that I was learning. And so started coaching professionally, like I said. And then one of the places that I kind of speak to it like I was walking down a path of rocks, and I had picked up all the rocks. I had picked up nutrition, fitness. I had picked up meditation. I had picked up yoga. I had picked up, you know, spirituality. I had picked up all these rocks. And there was the intimacy and sexuality rock. And I would just kind of walk past it and go, oh yeah, well, that's whatever. Like we all know about all that. That's not a problem. And then finally, a few years ago, I was walking past that rock and had to pick it up. I was like, no, there's something here. There's something here for me personally, and I need to know what that is. And that is really what blew me apart and put me back together at a cellular level, diving deep into intimacy, relationship, sexuality, how our society and our culture has programmed us to believe and think about these certain areas, especially as women, and how as human beings we approach this topic. And it was so powerful and so valuable that became really the specialty of my coaching practice. So now I work with women mainly in midlife because that's my experience, and couples, why we're having a couples retreat in September. And I do also work with couples to help them see things that they can't see each other in ways that they might be missing, especially people that have been together for a really long time. You think you know each other. We get into our patterns, we get into our grooves, we get into our ruts. And especially for women at this time in life, we can get bored. And so women will, in their relationship, they will often come to me with, oh, my libido is gone. I don't really want to have sex with my partner anymore. And oftentimes it's not that the libido is gone. They just don't want what they're being offered. So there's a real piece of education around this, because we never, ever, ever get a real solid foundational education about what it means to be a sexual being and then what it means to be in partnership. So there's a lot there.
Yeah.
and it's fabulous. I mean, I love what I do. It's so powerful. And I mean, it's fantastic.
I love that. You were saying there that a lot of your clients are midlife women. And I guess midlife is a time where we evolve and we transition. There's kind of a paradox there, right? So we kind of know ourselves really well, but at the same time, there's still new things to be discovered. And do you find that in the intimacy realm, that so we might think, okay, well, I kind of know what all my intimate cues are, my predilections, all the rest, but there is still stuff there to uncover and work on.
Oh, yes. It's a vast world. That is one of the things that I've learned. I grew up in the southeastern United States, which has a very certain way of being, a lot of time. And this is a generalization. It is not like this for everyone, but there is kind of a sense of women, just sit there and look nice. Don't say a lot, be appropriate. There are just things that good girls don't do. I raise my hand to the, being president of the Being a Good Girl Society. Like it's, I'm a recovering good girl. And so, and people pleaser, right? And so to your point, James, yes, there's so much out there that we are not taught. There are so many taboos. There are so many places that when we really start to uncover these in ourselves and in our partnerships, it uncovers places that you didn't even know existed. And there's a real freedom there and liberation and fun and play. That's another thing. In midlife, we can get so heavy about things. We can, and especially around intimacy, like we can get heavy around it. We can, one person is, not super satisfied maybe, and the other person wants more. And there's just a lot of dynamics that can come into play. And a lot of times we just don't know each other's language. And when we understand each other's erotic language, then we know how to feed each other. We know how to feed ourselves. We know how to feed each other. Also, pleasure is something that I don't think is really understood and talked about enough in these realms. How do we even receive pleasure? What is it to each person? Because it can be very different. Are we in our bodies? Can we even be in our bodies long enough to know when we are receiving pleasure. And this could be of any kind. It could be, tasting your favorite food. It could be sipping your favorite coffee. It could be looking at a beautiful flower outside. I mean, pleasure can come in all sorts of forms, not only physical touch, which is also a very, very big one. And even how to touch each other. Do we even really know how to do that? We think we do.
Do you find that people are discovering new ways, or maybe I guess this can happen a lot for a lot of people, that they just forget. They get, like you say, they get stuck in a rut in their relationship. By midlife, they're kind of tired. They get in after the day at work, and they're already shattered. They just want to eat their dinner and go to bed, and it kind of like goes by the wayside. So it's about rediscovering and reconnecting with that for couples.
Absolutely. And there really has to be intention there. Attention placed on this is important to us, and then intention, how do we want this to go? So my husband and I make time. I mean, we don't schedule it on the calendar necessarily, but we do make time for connection of a certain type. And also it does. I mean, we get into these patterns and ruts, and we forget to explore. We forget to just be with this other human being over there and feel what that feels like. So often what I will tell couples is to slow down, like almost go backwards for a little bit. Like, don't do the things that you know how to do. Don't push the buttons that you know how to push. Don't do the things like, slow down, back up, and just touch and see what that produces. See if you can feel it. One person's the giver, one person's the receiver. Switch places. And
yeah, and I would say, actually, sorry to interrupt you there, but actually you've just triggered something for me. And actually, how you feel being in your body at that moment in time. Because when you said, can you even allow yourself to be in your body when this is happening? And that's something I've had to work on for my various reasons, had lots of therapy, being in my body, being able to connect with it. That's a huge part of receiving intimacy, receiving that from your partner. Because if you can't stay in your body for long enough for that to happen, you're just going to want to rush through this whole thing. Like, that's what you're saying about slow down. You're going to want to rush through the whole thing. It's bing, bang, boom, done. And then you're like, oh, now I can go off and do something else where I don't have to be in my body again.
Exactly. How many times, well, I know I've heard plenty of women saying, I'm tired of checking off my grocery list when I'm having sex with my partner.
Yeah.
We are not present in the moment.
Yeah.
And there are lots of reasons. This isn't a conversation necessarily about someone who has had trauma in their life, a sexual trauma or any sort of large trauma. That's a different conversation that has a different path to healing. So this conversation is mainly for, people that are typically just in their relationship, moving about their life. And so, yes, being present in our bodies, being able to be in our bodies and receive what is being given, and even knowing what that means. And that's where communication comes in, because the two people the two people come to an agreement on what that means for them. So receiving to me might look and feel very different than receiving to you. So we have a conversation about that. We understand what that means for each other. What type of touch do you like? How do you want to receive? Are you present in your body right now? I mean, that's one of the things that I work with a lot in couples and even in my own relationship. Hey, are you present with me right now? Are you here? Are you here with me? If not, it's fine. And that's another thing too, for the other partner to not take it personally if their partner isn't present in that moment. Instead of going, oh, you're never here, and oh my God, you don't want to do this, and that circle of dialogue that can happen. It's getting curious and saying, oh, okay, well, tell me what's going on. What's going on with you right now? Yeah. And then having a conversation and bringing that person back into the present moment. Then you have a possibility for connection.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think so many people resonate with that because obviously at midlife, we're under so much pressure. There are so many things going on. And it's not just like a ticking off a grocery list. It's like a constant running commentary in our head of all the things that we're worried about, got anxieties about, need to do. So no wonder, as you're saying, we have to make a conscious effort, like of intent and attention and intention to bring this back into our world and be present with it, because it does fall by the wayside. It becomes so low on the priority list, right? Because of everything else that's going on. And yeah, it really resonates. It will resonate with so many other people.
And I think that's a good point, because what we tend to do is, like you said earlier, when we get home, we've done all the things, we've had everything in the world happen. We're thinking about 100 different items that we've had to do, or we want to do, or we did yesterday, or we didn't do, and all the different things that cloud in our minds. And so by the time we get home with our partner, we're tired. And this is where health and fitness comes in too. Like, you got to make sure that you physically feel good. If you physically feel bad, you're not going to want to be intimate with your partner. So feeling good is huge.
I was actually I actually wrote a post on this ages ago, actually, maybe like a couple of years ago, but I was looking at the research for midlife men and women and the link between regular exercise and libido. And for men, there is an extremely strong link between being physically active and like incidences of erectile dysfunction. So like basically the more sedentary you were, the more likely it was to happen. The fitter you were, way less likely. And similarly for women who exercise regularly had a much higher libido than women that didn't. So this is one way you have to be vital. And I guess it's that thing. There's the energy of movement and fitness, but it's also, you know, when we do exercise, it's getting that connection to our body and ourselves as well.
Absolutely. You are present in your body when you're exercising. Plus, it is producing and really pushing a lot of the neurochemicals and hormones and blood flow. And it's just making the body work better as a system. So when the body is generally working better, it wants to produce, it wants to have pleasure, it wants to connect with another human being.
And I think as well, some of the things that we sometimes hear is the challenge that when one partner is really focusing on their wellness, it's not about a dress size and it's about health. Okay. So if they're really focusing on what they're eating, how they're moving their body, just generally getting connected with their body and feeling good and strong in themselves, and the other partner isn't, that can be a real disconnect in a relationship, because it does feel like, look, I'm doing all this and I'm doing it for myself. This is for me. It's not for you, but I'm doing this for myself. But there is, let's just be honest, there's this part that actually must look at that other person going, why aren't you respecting yourself? Why aren't you looking after yourself? Why aren't you, yes, wanting to do it for yourself, but also not being encouraged by me setting this example and wanting to do it as well, so that you feel good in your body, so you feel good with me, and then we can have a more sexual relationship. It's a really strong factor that we see a lot.
Absolutely. One of the most challenging aspects of being in a relationship, and everybody thinks it's differences in sex, it's different, you have different feelings and values around money, and all of that is true to a certain degree. But the number one challenge for couples is when one is in a growth spurt and the other one is not. And it could look like exactly what you were just pointing to around health and fitness. It could look like one has apparently a stronger libido than the other one. I would sometimes push back on that, and we can talk about that too. But it's when one is in a growth spurt and the other one isn't. So what to do about that? Well, it's interesting because, like you said, I'm doing this for myself, right? I'm working out. I want to be physically fit. I want to be active. It is not about dress size. It's about feeling good. So I'm doing all that for me. And let's say my partner is not at all, right? I have a choice to make ultimately. And these are the hard truths to try to face. I have a choice to make. I can accept that you know what, I'm going to do my thing over here. My partner's not into it. I'm going to love them unconditionally, no matter what. And if they're not into it, I'm great with that. And drop the story that you need them to be something different than they are. Or you have a different choice to make. That doesn't work for me over there. I want to be with someone who is on the same path, I want to do these things. I want to go on trips where we're going to go exercise and climb a mountain and go surfing and kiteboarding and, whatever. And if I'm with someone who doesn't want to do all those things, that's a hard reality to face. So it's really, in communication with partnerships, it's really facing what's actually going on and knowing that you can handle whatever it is that's going on.
So you alluded to there, like that's the biggest challenge. I was going to ask you that actually. Obviously we're kind of going more into the relationship side there, but again, they all feed into each other, the sexual side, the intimacy side of things, the relationship side of things. And the greatest challenge that you see in the work that you do is when two people are one of them's having a growth spurt and the other one isn't. Is that, you would say that is the biggest challenge that you experience in your midlife couples?
I think so. And right now it's really fascinating because I have a lot of women coming to me in a growth spurt, a lot of women saying, I want more. I just want more. Like on paper, my life looks perfect.
Yes.
I have a career that I love. I have, whether you have children, don't have children, I'm in a marriage or partnership that's really solid. We love each other. We have this great foundation and I want more. And they feel guilty about that. Why do I want more? What's going on? And they have this big, expansive energy. And their partner is on the other side saying, I don't understand you. What's happening? Everything's fine. We're good. I don't want to do this. And so it can be very, very challenging because there can be a lot of guilt and shame for the partner who does want to grow. And in this scenario, it's been mainly women, although that's not always the case. A lot of times it's also the men who are coming in, wanting more, and their wives, their partners are saying, I don't care if I ever have sex again. So there's two completely different sides. And, when you were in the introduction, pointed to the way I see this midlife time for all of us, men and women, as a threshold. So if we look back through our adolescence, that's one threshold that we walk through, right? The hormonal, everything that happens, we're all very aware of that. And then on the other side, especially for women who are menopausal and that complete hormone transition that happens around this time, and then the men who are possibly in relationships with them, it's another threshold. And it can feel like another birthing process. It feels like you're being twisted and smushed and turned and lifted and smacked down. And there's just a lot of upheaval there can be during this time. And so this is a time for guidance, like what you guys do, what I'm doing, to provide a pathway, to provide some steps along the journey to help people through this threshold. I know I've received it. I looked for it. I still have people that support me in different areas. And it's just really important to have that as we're going through these processes, because if one, like we've been talking about, if one person is in a growth spurt and the other one isn't, it's challenging. Like it gets really bumpy and really messy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Angie, I want to ask you a question here. Do you perceive that there is a gender imbalance in women and men opening up to ask for help? And I know I've got my personal view on this. Today, I even saw a post where someone was like, I don't want to be in a men's group. I don't want to have to talk about my emotions. I want to just see that I'm strong and sort this out myself. So do you see women are probably much more open to feeling that need to make a change and open up and ask for help? And I think, well, I'm interested in your thoughts on it. Do men still struggle to open up and show their vulnerability to ask for the help for solutions that they can't provide themselves at this point in time?
I think so. I have so many feelings about this. I have a real soft spot for men right now. I mean, I do.
Me too.
I really do. I have a son who's 23. I'm married to a man. I've been with him for 30 years. So yeah, I really do. And I agree with you. Historically, and at least in my experience, it usually is the women that will come and want to open up, receive guidance, get support, get help, and the men can be resistant. Now, having said that, when I am working with men within a couple, it is beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful, the places that they will go given the opportunity and given a safe place, and without expectation that they need to sound a certain way, or that we're going to sit around and talk about our feelings all the time. Like, no, we can just be together, and you can be a man. You do not have to be anything different than that. You get to be you. You get to be strong. You get to be a man. You get to show up exactly how you want to show up. We will talk about some language that your wife might be using so that you can be on the same page and not think she's crazy. So it really is about education. And in my experience, in my practice, I see that they only want to love and support their partner, period. They will do anything.
Yeah.
And I love working with men. It is like lighting me on fire right now, because there's so much potential and so much possibility if we can just crack the door just a tiny bit. And it doesn't have to look like going and sitting in a circle in a men's group, and not like, I get all that, right? I support all that stuff, but I get that that's not for everybody.
I love that you asked that question, James, because I hear you, Angie. My heart's like wide open to having these conversations and hoping that they reach men as much as possible, as many men as possible, because I'm not going to get into the politics of it and this whole kind of gender inequality and everything like that, but I do think that there is a whole swathe of men out there that do want to love, that do want to support, that do want to be accepted just as they are, in a safe environment with women, to actually be told, you know what, I'm not threatened by you. I don't want you to be threatened by me. We are equals, just in our own different way. And let's celebrate those different ways, those differences, and not fight against each other like we have been doing over and over. Let's just come together. And I do love the fact that there's men groups, and obviously James is part of some of those, and they've been very, very beneficial for him. But I love what you said, and I just wanted to reinforce my voice in that and just say I 100% agree, and I think it's a very, very beautiful thing that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's powerful when we can, because a lot of what I find in the work that I'm doing with the women is a real resistance. And look, you can make your man bigger without making yourself smaller. And vice versa. Like, we can all grow together. We can all be in our bigness in different ways, right? We all have different ways of doing it, and we can all be together in the same conversation with the same passion, and with intimacy and sex. Like, we can have a great time. We just have to drop the stories of who we think we are, the stories of what we think our relationship is about, and start to open that up. And like I said, crack the window and see what else is available, see what else is possible. Sit with each other. What do you want? What do you want right now? Do you even know? Because a lot of times when I ask women that question, they have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
They just know they don't want what they want, but they have no idea what they do want.
I don't want this. I don't want this.
I don't want that. But
what do you want?
and I'm like, okay, then what? Let's talk about that. What do you want?
No, I know. Do you know what, Angie, as well? I said that we talked about that, but we haven't talked about that on this podcast, but we've talked a few times now, and they've been amazing conversation. I remember us saying about that, we don't have to make ourselves small, or we don't have to make ourselves really big to make them feel small. And this whole one-upmanship in relationships that can happen because we're feeling insecure, or whatever that might look like. And I know that we said, and I complete transparency, when James and I first got together, I'm a very determined woman. I'm very fierce. I'm very ambitious. So there was this one-upmanship, definitely in my heart. I was like, no. If I lift him up, he's going to get too big, and then I'm going to feel really small. And we've worked with on that for over the past 7 years. And I know I said this to you, in the last few years, I just want James to shine and expand and blow up in the world as much as possible. And in doing so, guess what? I now feel like I have permission to do exactly the same. We can just expand together, and it's such a wonderful thing.
Exactly. So well said. It does not have to be a choice. And I see that so much with couples, that there's a competitive nature. We get into this competition. I've seen it in my own relationship, right? I mean, we'll look at each other at any given point and say, remember, no one's winning here. Like,
Totally.
We're on the same team. Like, we are not in competition. And I think what can happen is when we get into those spaces, and women, frankly, a lot of times have been trained and programmed through our modern culture to be better men than men. Yes. We are as driven. We're not prettier versions of men. We are as driven and ambitious, which is great. No one's asking anyone to give that up. Keep going. Do exactly what you want to do. Keep that drive, keep that ambition, keep all of that. It's good. It's healthy. Do it. Don't give it up. And also make sure that you have some flow, right? I mean, that there's some flow in your life, that you are able to relax. Relaxation is a very, very important point for women. It is a sticking point. And I know I sound like I'm kind of going back and forth between men and women a lot, but because of the work that I do and it's just what I see a lot of is, men can have tendencies, women can have tendencies, in my experience with the people that I'm working with and in my communities and the people that I talk to. But any of these tendencies can really happen in someone who is a man or someone who is a woman. Like it can show up either way. But yeah, I mean,
I hear you on the
relaxing
thing. Yeah, I hear you on the relaxing thing. James looked at me. You won't see this, listeners, because you're listening, and there is no recording of this. But James when Angie just said about relaxing, it's harder for women. James just literally, his head was like an owl, and it swiveled at such speed. I thought it was going to fall off. I know, what are you talking about? I find it easy to relax. I've just been on a retreat.
You need more relaxation time.
I do.
Angie, I guess if someone out there, for our listeners that are out there, maybe they're not feeling like satisfied in a relationship at the moment, they want something more from their partner or something more for themselves, but they don't quite know how to broach it, because this is, if you haven't talked about it in your relationship, there can be a lot of shame, a lot of ego wrapped up in it even. How would you go about broaching it with your partner, like opening the conversation up to start making some of the steps you've talked about? Absolutely.
Setting a container. So let's say I have a desire that I want to bring up with my husband, with my partner. First, I would create a container of safety. And what I mean by that is asking for a conversation. Like, I'm not going to do this while he's in the kitchen making dinner and, or he's working on taxes, or this is a conversation that you have face to face. Claire is laughing.
I'm not. Angie, I'm so sorry.
Did we hit something there?
Yeah, but then my head swiveled like an owl and nearly fell off, because this is actually, so sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is a bit of realness as well to the show. So I decided to talk to James about something that was really important to me, really important, while he was actually in between cooking and doing taxes. So he was doing both at the same time. And I just, and then.
Guess what I got from him? You're not paying me full attention. No, because the dinner's burning.
Trying to do our taxes. So it just.
That's a useful first tip. Claire.
It was really, really funny because I did get really angsty about it. And, but then the beautiful thing about our relationship now is I was like, oh my goodness, I totally see where you're coming from. And James was like, no, I see where you were coming from. But the timing, the container is clearly. The container
wasn't there.
The container was absent, Angie. There was
right,
no container.
Exactly. So that's I love that so much. Like, that's such a beautiful example, because our attention is a big gift. What we put our attention on, who we give it to in any given moment, is a huge gift. So paying attention, it's also paying attention to what the other person is up to. So if I'm like, got this thing in my, I'm like, oh my God, I'm all riled up about something. I need to be with myself enough. This is where being in the body, being present with yourself comes in. I need to be with myself enough to be able to pay attention to what you're up to. And if you're cooking and doing taxes
at the same time,
I'm going to think to myself, maybe this isn't the time, because I'm aware, I'm paying attention. But what I will do is say, hey, and I might even give a little physical touch. Maybe I put my hand on a shoulder gently, put my hand on an arm and say, hey, I have something that I'd really like to discuss. When is going to be a good time? I see that you're cooking dinner and doing taxes. So that is acknowledging the other person. You're paying attention to where they are, which is important. You're not just rolling over them like a steamroller. And hey, when can we have a discussion? When we're finished with dinner, can we sit down and talk? So you create the container, you acknowledge the other person. And then when you are able to sit down together, it's face to face. You're facing each other, not necessarily shoulder to shoulder, not when someone's walking around and you're kind of following them, hey, talk to you, no, you sit down face to face and relax your nervous system as much as possible. Down regulate your own nervous system, be present with yourself, and as much as you can, make the best attempt to drop your story of who you think that other person is. I know that's kind of an odd thing to bring into the conversation possibly, but what that means is I want to get rid of my expectations of who I think they are and any assumptions that I have. When I say this, they're going to say that. Well, if I say this, this is how they feel. You don't know. Even if you've been with someone for 30 years, you don't know. Today is a different day. Today is a different moment. They might have gas. They might have just had a conversation with somebody that pissed them off. I mean, you don't really know what's going on. So dropping the story of what you think is happening over there for that other person. And so when you bring in this conversation, again, down-regulate your nervous system, take a deep breath in a calm and relaxed manner. You can still have energy. You're not trying to be someone different than you're not, but just from a relaxed place. Be honest. Be honest and transparent. I have been thinking, I would like to explore XYZ. I would like to hire a coach. I would like to, explore our sexuality, our sex life in this way. I would like to have a conversation about this. I'd like to know your fantasy. What are you thinking about? How is sex going for you? How is it going for me? Just start asking questions. And the biggest question is, what do you want? What do you want? What do I want? And what do we want together? Because the relationship is a third party. A relationship is a living, breathing organism. Each person, when you have a two-partner intimate relationship, each person, let's assume, is whole and complete. They are their individual self. And then you come together and create this third thing called a relationship. and it lives, it breathes, it's organic, and it needs to be fed. So how are we feeding this relationship? And so having these conversations in a truly honest, relaxed environment, but you have to be with yourself enough to know that you don't know what's happening over there. Get curious about what is happening over there with the other person. So if they say something, not immediately reacting from a place of like, oh my God, fear, anger, frustration. I knew you were going to say that. Those different places that we go, stay with yourself, keep breathing, down regulate your nervous system, and get curious. Oh, really? Huh, that's interesting. Why would you say that? How do you feel about that? Tell me more. Tell me more about that. We forget when we're in relationships that the other person over there still has feelings, emotions, parts of their lives that they're experiencing, and we don't know everything about them. So getting curious.
I love all
that.
of that.
Great advice.
It really is helpful. And actually, if you need to go back and listen to that again, listeners, and write down some of those questions, because actually I'm just listening. It's about being curious, and it's about having a toolkit as well. Actually, I think this is why it's so important that we work with mentors, that we work with coaches, that we have support, because sometimes we're going to get that right, sometimes we're not going to get it right, and that's okay. But actually, repetition is mastery. So the more we can have those conversations and remember some of those key questions, it's going to really help get the most from that conversation. But again, actually, from the physical side, down regulate your nervous system, because you're like, okay, I'm asking questions, I'm open, I'm not closed. That's how being closed off feels very different in the body to being open, and that partner will experience that physically as well, that energy that you're giving off. So I love all of that. Super helpful.
So brilliant. I'm so glad you brought that in. Your partner will absolutely feel the energy that you're bringing. If you are shut down, your partner will feel it. You will feel it, and the other person does too. So if that happens, if you get to a sticking, because you're going to mess it up, right? Like it's bumpy. Relationships are bumpy. Like, we mess things up all the time. If you get to a real sticking place, like where you're real tightly wound and nobody's moving, just take a break. Take a break. Like, you know what? No hard feelings. No one's angry. Even if there is anger, okay, anger is present. Let's just be with that. Go take a break and come back later when you've let that energy play through, because it's temporary. Everything is temporary. Anger does not stay forever. Disappointment does not stay forever. All of these feelings are temporary. So let that energy play through and come back to it later.
Amazing stuff. This has been an incredible conversation. And here's the thing, I actually think we're going to have more. I think we'll have more conversations with you, lovely lady, about all of this stuff, because, well, I think we've just touched the tip of the iceberg actually on some of this stuff. There are so many other things I wanted to, and I know there will be for you as well, James, so many other things that we wanted to ask you. So I have to have you back.
I would love that. Absolutely. Yes.
Now,
there's
Angie,
many places to go.
Yes.
Where can our listeners find out more information about you, and where can they make contact with you?
Great. So my website is www.angiebyrd.com. That's ANGIE, B as in boy, YRD as in dog.com. And they can email me, Angie@angiebyrd.com. And then I'm on Instagram at Angie.Byrd.
Cool. We'll put all those in the show notes as well.
You don't have to, just go to the show notes. I would thoroughly recommend getting in touch, and definitely following Angie on Instagram. She does loads and loads of amazing content on Instagram, but definitely check her out, stay in touch with her. I'll put all of those details in the show notes. And yeah, listeners, we want to hear your thoughts on this amazing, juicy stuff. So do let us know how you found the show. And we are thanking you again, Angie, for being here and sending you lots of love.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah.